I have no preparation on paper. I just put some notes for myself, but other than that, I have no preparation on paper. I'm not going to read anything or whatever.
Oh, don't worry.
I'm just going to have normal conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Welcome everybody to the Leaders Podcast. My name is Matt Santos. Today on the show we have Michel Kant, who is an entrepreneur. He got his entrepreneurial start at 14 years old with his first website hosting business. And since then, he worked his way up from a junior SEO all the way to head of SEO for Staples Europe. And now he owns his own digital consulting firm and is working on the Rooster Network, as well as a top secret mentorship program that he's hopefully going to talk about today.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to talk about all of that. Thank you very much for that introduction.
Yeah. So, hey, we met last year in Portugal at the European Innovation Academy. And since then we've kept in touch, and it's just been an awesome friendship, and I'm really happy to have you.
Thank you very much. Well, likewise, I am very happy that we met last year, and it's been great to keep catching up and see how you're doing in the last year. And now that you have this podcast and that I can be on there, who knew last year, right?
Yeah. So let's just jump right in. What is,
yes.
What are you most proud about kind of in the last year here?
That I've basically set up 3 companies.
No big deal.
No big deal. Just doing it on the side, right? No,
Yeah.
it's also difficult because it's difficult to focus, and there's definitely I want to do more even, but you gotta also block and focus. But yeah, if you look back at the last year alone, the fact that I even started for myself and got out of the, let's say, the official business world and being stuck just as a normal manager, where there's nothing wrong with, but I really wanted to get out, and it is really difficult to make that step to actually like literally and physically do it.
What was the final kind of straw or final kind of push to get you to take that jump?
It's actually not that difficult. I'm thinking, but Staples decided that the central marketing team is going to be made redundant. So I was made redundant together with 200 other colleagues. And for me, already thinking about quitting and starting my own consulting business initially, that was the moment to start doing it, because otherwise I had to start applying for other jobs. I was looking around, and then I was really thinking, no, this is for me now the time to do this. Also because I was made redundant, you get a little bit of extra money here in Amsterdam, because it's their choice to break up the contract and not my choice. And for me, that was the biggest concern, because if you start for yourself, there is no guarantee of income anymore. And that was my biggest worry, because I do have a mortgage, I do have a life, right? I do have costs. You got to have income, so you got to have some good savings on the side, or you got to get some cash directly from clients. And with this moment in time, I had both, because I got a little bit of extra cash from Staples, and on the other side, I had 199 colleagues that I had good relationship with, that all went to new companies in the area, and all of a sudden became leads, very, let's say, hot leads even, because I had good relationships with them already. And that's exactly what happened. As soon as people started to realize that I was going to do my own consulting, I had people being interested in working with me, and it actually led to my first client on literally the day after I stopped at Staples.
And sorry, can we back up for just a moment for people listening? Because sure. I think your story is quite interesting. I mean, you like the head of SEO for a massive like global company is pretty impressive. So can you kind of give some backstory on that? How'd you get there?
Yeah, sure. It was a journey by itself, and it was a very interesting journey, because when I started at Staples as SEO specialist / SEO manager, and I was just by myself. It was 5 years ago, 2015, and I was looking for a role that I could actually grow towards something more bigger than just being somebody who does SEO for companies, because I have been a consultant before in SEO. So I was working indeed for a lot of different companies, just giving them SEO advice. But I was never really in charge of the budgets. I was never really in charge of doing the stakeholder management. And I also wanted to grow in that area. And this is where Staples came in. And and I kind of took the role on the promise that I could grow it, but I had to do it myself. Of course, I had managers, but they gave me the trust to do this. And then I had to make something out of that. And so over the course of 3-4 years, I've been there in total for 4.5 years. I grew that from just me, myself, and I into working with an agency, working with all my local partners from within the organization, and to hiring people from for my own team locally in Amsterdam. And I got to go through that whole journey and grow SEO within the organization, both physically from a person perspective, but also mentally from an understanding perspective. That was really, really nice to do.
Yeah. And then during that time, is there any one person that you found that offered like the mentorship you were looking for, or advice on how to how to step into that leadership position?
Yes. Actually, there were 3 people that were very important to me at that time. Actually, 3 times my manager, um, Laquan, Emil, and Brian. And I realized at Staples how important it is to have a manager that trusts you and doesn't micromanage you. At least that's the way that I don't work, being micromanaged. I need to be trusted. And it's more or less my own personality, because like you mentioned in the beginning, when I was a teenager, I had my own businesses. I did my own thing. I did my own had my own little direction that I went. I always know where I want to go and what I want to achieve. If somebody tries to micromanage me, you totally get on the wrong foot with me. I don't know how that expression works in English.
Pretty close.
So that worked very well with these 3 managers that I had. They trusted me a lot, and they gave me guidance when I asked for it instead of the other way around. And they knew that I am good at what I do, and they were there for me when I needed them. And they all had their own ways there of doing that.
Right.
All 3 of them, because they like Emil was there at the start. He hired me basically. Then he gave over to Laquan, and Laquan has been my manager for most of the time. And she was the director of what was her official title again? That customer experience, director of customer experience for the whole European market. And so we got to share also a lot of the data. So a lot of my SEO insights would be very welcome to her work, and the other way around. Because as soon as I got the visitors in place, we needed to capture them as well and needed to keep them. And she was also introducing me to a lot of people internally. And Emil did that in the beginning as well. So both of them really enabled me as well to succeed. And with Brian specifically, he took me more in the strategic direction, where he guided me in taking everything that I basically learned at that time, becoming more like SEO manager, like a good manager, and making that more into, okay, how do you then behave as a head off? And not by telling me what to do, but more or less by directing, not even directing, but asking the right questions and making me do certain stuff that would elevate me into that role.
Right.
And so it's really important that if you're looking for growing, that you have a manager that fits your way of working, so that they enable you to grow as well, and not.
For sure.
Yeah,
no doubt. Of course it's pretty important, because I have definitely seen some managers in the past kind of make those mistakes by kind of stifling what people are trying to do, or trying to
Hmm.
micromanage, and then it just kind of blows up,
Yes.
and it
But you
doesn't
can't
work.
you can't always blame them either, right? So I've also seen in my life people who, especially at agencies, where you're just in your role for as a specialist for quite some time, and then because you're there for so long, you get lifted
You get
to the next
promoted, and
level.
yeah.
Exactly. But
What is
being a
that called?
specialist, or
Promoted to the level of incompetence? Is that, do you have something
some
like that? Yeah.
something like that, yeah, because it's
Yeah.
something totally different, right? Being a manager versus being somebody who executes. All of a sudden, it's way more about people and listening and caring and talking
Yeah.
and communicating, over I am the guy who knows it all.
Yeah.
And what happens, some people, and I made that mistake in the beginning sometimes myself as well, where you just know that you know because you've been doing the job for so long,
Hmm.
and you can do it faster, you can do it better, but that's not your position anymore. So
Yeah.
you got to give that up.
And how do you
You,
pull back the reins on that? Because I know it can be very tempting to kind of just jump in and do it yourself.
yes,
So how do you
yeah.
manage yourself during that type of decision?
Stay very calm, breathe in, breathe out, and keep your restrain yourself. It is a mental thing that you have to overcome in the beginning, and you really have to let somebody fail maybe even 3 times.
Yeah.
And um, and sometimes you can't do it because there's a lot of pressure, and then you can also be more hard on them and you can press them a little bit harder. But sometimes you just have to let people fail or let people figure it out themselves and just give them some guidance, like go here and go there and read it up, instead of, oh wait a minute, Michel knows, so I will ask Michel. Mm-mm. You can't always, as a manager, also do that, right? You also um, you have to guide people, and people learn more by doing than when you tell them literally how
Yeah.
something works and needs
So
to be done.
is there one particular kind of lesson that you've learned from your career there that has kind of stuck out with you, like a big mistake you've made, or something similar?
Yeah, for sure. I did make actually one big mistake once, and I wouldn't say it cost me my job, but it definitely cost me my relationship with my manager at that time. It was long before Staples happened, and I learned a lot from that because I learned how to not manage a person.
Hmm.
Um, uh,
Like what happened, if you can say?
yeah, sure. I was supposed to present a strategy, and I had the theory totally the other way around, in short. um, and I was the expert, and I had it wrong, and the client could see.
Shit.
Yes, it's like it was the worst experience professionally that I've gone through. Um, and my manager was not afraid of telling me afterwards,
Hmm.
like with hard words. And that relationship just never got good again. He also never trusted me again.
Mm.
uh, uh, it was painful experience for me,
Yeah.
and at that moment especially, and I didn't really know how to deal with it, so I was actually um, affected by it pretty heavily. But then when you grow over it over time, and time does heal, even professionally, because you start realizing, yeah, come on, a mistake is human. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody. I was 24, 25 at that time. Come on. I had not eaten so much cheese of the world. That's the Dutch expression. Sorry.
Okay.
Um, but uh, I sometimes people have to. That was, I think, a big lesson if I look back at it, and that's just what I just said as well. Like sometimes you just have to accept as a manager somebody fails. That somebody fails, and that should be fine. Fine that there are consequences for that, and it's fine, and it's actually good that you have a decent conversation with that person, but never give the person the feeling that you've lost trust in them, because that's most basically the worst feeling that you can give somebody. Because if you're not being trusted anymore, how are you going to put in um, any of your biggest efforts? How are you going to work twice as hard when you need to work twice as hard, because you're not feeling properly validated anymore anyway? So why would you put in all that effort?
If somebody
So yeah,
doesn't trust you, like it could be very demotivating, I
it is,
think.
yes, it
Yeah.
is very demotivating. And
Ugh. Ugh.
for me, that was definitely, after some time, it was the moment I also realized that for me, it was also just time to move on.
Yeah.
Uh, and not and like within a year, I just took a new job and moved on. Not only because of that, of course, but it was a huge stain there for me
Yeah.
mentally. And and like I said, that relationship with my manager just never recovered at that time.
Yeah.
Um,
But hey man, you've done a lot of growth since then.
No, but I'm honest. It's part of
Yeah.
growth. You have to
Yeah.
fail a couple. You have to fail a couple of times in order to grow properly. Because I would hate to go through that again if you were rewind time. But I would not like to have missed it because I have also learned a lot from that experience.
Yeah.
I've definitely also grown harder because of that experience. At that time, I was pretty naive. I would not go into my management that much. And come on,
Mm.
you have to also, put your word out there and learn how to deal with people that are fighting you, and how people not always are in your corner of the room, right? Sometimes your opinion is not the same as another person, and that is not something to be afraid of. And you have to be able to also then, after that, depending on the situation, to still drink a beer with that person.
Yeah.
And my manager was fine with that. At 5, he would totally turn around and he would try to be best friends, and I couldn't handle that at the time. So now I'm like that as well. If it's 5 or 6 and I have just had a really heavy debate about something,
Yeah.
and I understand people's point of view, but I just know I'm right, and let's talk about it tomorrow again, and now let's talk about soccer,
Yeah. Yeah.
have a beer. Fine. It's different. And that's growth. That is personal growth. That is part of the journey that you have to go through. And I think everybody needs to go through some of that pain in order to also, gain.
Oh, for sure. And I think like your emotional discipline, you've learned to kind of keep it under control as well.
That's a perfect way of phrasing it. That period.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks.
I'm not going to say more about that.
Yeah, no. And then now, since then, you've moved up. You've basically
Yes.
took a massive role in a massive company, and
Yes.
then now you're moving even further from that, and you've had a lot of success in the last year. We've been keeping in touch about Rooster Consulting and the work you're doing there, and now you have another couple projects on the go.
Yes.
So what's going on now? What are you up to?
I feel very confident. That's what I'm up to. And I'm not sure if that's gonna kick back at me at some point.
Yeah.
But this whole journey of within Staples of making something pretty big out of something that was very small, and getting all of this managing directors educated on SEO and interested in SEO and learning about SEO, and actually being able to grow that, made me realize that I'm capable of making something out of nothing. And I just looked back over when I was at that position as head of SEO for about a year and a half, that everything was in a very normal flow. Everything was going, the projects were going, and then you start realizing, okay, is this it, or did I do what I needed to do here, and is it now time for somebody else to take over and start maintaining instead of growing? Um, and I realized over time that I'm the guy who likes to initiate stuff, grow stuff, fight to get a seat on the table, and make it happen. But
Yeah.
then once it comes down to maintenance, I'm not the guy that's just going to sit down and relax and goes and sees everything works fine. That's not me. I will always dream up new things.
Yeah.
And that was last year. That's like a year and a half ago. When my realization was, okay, I need to start dreaming again. I was locked in, and as soon as I started doing that, I came up with ideas to build my own tool, for example, for marketeers who do not know that much about SEO or do not have the need to go super deep into SEO. But you also don't have time for that because you're heading up the SEO department for 17 countries, 2 websites in each country, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's very busy. And then people always say, yeah, you got to start something up on the side, and I believe in that. And there's a whole debate we can have on when and how, and
I'm on your side with that. So
it's
yeah.
always tricky, and it's always difficult to start something on the side. And we're not all Elon Musk, we don't all sleep 4 hours a night and work for the rest, and then have no private life, or 1 hour a week. um, so it's very difficult. And for me, last year came at a really perfect moment, actually, to start for myself, and to enable myself to take on these roles, of the role of entrepreneur again.
Mm-hmm.
um, but I also had to figure out how to start that. And for me, that was consulting, because you need cash, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
very, very important that you have cash. And I was not a very good programmer. I'm still not a very good programmer. I'm just
Better than
learning
me, man.
on the go. I'm learning every day more and more. Um, but if you want to, like, this was my dream, right? I want to go into software and eventually build an agency that helps organizations deal with building software.
Mm-hmm.
um, Learning how to deal with AI and machine learning. But I need to have track record for that. I need to have something that proves that I'm good with this, and that I actually am the guide that you can go to help you with your problem. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where my SEO solution comes in. I want to build that first to show off with, basically,
Yep.
um, that I can deal with AI machine learning, and that I can also for myself build a company that is beyond just me and beyond just uh, SEO consulting and SEO knowledge. But in order to do that, I need to enable myself to have time to build that, to learn,
Mm-hmm.
to program. So that's where the consulting came in, and that's why I decided to start with consulting initially, just so that I can turn that on and off whenever I need to earn some money that
Interesting.
can keep me afloat.
Yeah.
But I do
Yeah.
want to get rid of that as soon as possible, because that's not the most fun thing to do anymore for me.
Okay.
You know,
So
that's that's
what are
but
you
it's
wanting to
it's
do
an
now? What are your
uh,
what's your current goal?
build something that is just beyond me, like something bigger than myself. Like an organization with people, an organization that helps businesses um, beyond just my hourly input.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of business that I want to grow towards. Um, and then share my knowledge within that. Share my knowledge of digital marketing, especially the technical side of digital marketing, with organizations, preferably in the B2B area, because there's a lot of need for that. They are a little bit behind the
Yeah.
B2C market, um, on how to deal with all of this. And that's kind of the area that I want to go into. That's what the area that I've also
Interesting.
playing with for the
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah. During this last kind of year, what is one of the biggest risks that you took?
Oh, that's very easy. That's for sure starting.
Yeah. And
and not taking a normal job.
yeah, yeah, because I'm sure you got offers,
There were
and
offers, yes.
yeah, yeah, and then but deciding to do something for yourself is scary.
There was an amazing offer for this ride sharing service that starts with a U,
Oh,
and I didn't take it.
wow! So you passed
And
on that to
yes,
pursue your
and
own.
mentally it was difficult, because do you go for
Wow!
safety or do you go for what you want, right?
Wow! Yeah.
But you go for what you want, and I couldn't be more happier than ever, right? Uh, if I would have gone into the other direction, and there was actually 2 more offers. So that was thinking. I think that was a little bit Dutch there. I think that was the biggest learning from the last year, is um, the verification that seriously committing to what you want is the best thing you can do, because you can go for safe. You can go for finding a new job, and you can do again what you've done. You can be a SEO manager again. 2 fingers in the nose, you can do your job. Every month, at the end of the month, you have your income, and that's it. You go to your job from 9 to 5, c'est ça. And then there is the big unknown of starting for yourself. How am I going to find clients? How am I going to make sure I have a proper monthly income? How am I going to do my own administration? I had no idea. How am I going to do sales? When I'm going to have time for marketing? Everything that is part of entrepreneurship, or being self-employed. That's how I prefer to call this. I'm self-employed instead of being a real entrepreneur as a consultant. I see that as two very different things. But it's like a really nice start that you can very easily grow into, and just figuring it out on the go, talking to other people who are doing similar things. That is so refreshing. That is so nice than just doing where you're safe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I can tell you that it's been super inspiring for me, kind of keep staying in touch with you to know what you're working on. And I find it really motivating to kind of work on my own stuff. So like this show, for example.
Yes.
Definitely not something I'm super comfortable with by any means, but getting it done and getting started.
It's because it's unknown, right? You have no experience in this, but it's what you want. And look at the smile on your face that you have every time you talk about this.
Yeah. And I know I'm bad at it right now too, which makes it hilarious. Like so
look, wait till you have done number 100 and we'll look back at this one, and then coronavirus will be gone at that time, and hopefully we'll have time for a proper face-to-face beer again, and then we will listen to this episode. And we'll look back at it and we'll say it wasn't that bad.
Thanks, man. Yeah. And do you want to talk about your next project? Or are you going to keep that one under wraps for now?
No, I have one that I'm going to keep under wraps for now.
Sure.
It's a secret, but it's a very interesting one for the Dutch market. So but I need to 100% certain if it's gonna happen. We're talking with investors right now and see if that's going to go through.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But I can't say anything about that. So, but that's something I have no experience with being so secretive about, and I hate that. I am usually talk about everything, and again, that's also a big learning, because you're doing something that you don't know anything about. And that's also fun again.
Yeah.
So if I look back, like if I'm talking about this right now, I keep doing things that I've never done before in the last year. And the more I think about that, the more exciting I get about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's also like one of the really cool things about enabling yourself to be on your own and work for yourself, is you can just do whatever you want.
For sure. I love it.
And then there's also, of course, the danger of losing focus and derailing and losing sight of where you want to go to.
Yeah.
But
so for yourself, sorry, go ahead.
But right now with three big things, on like the consulting stuff, the application that I'm building, and learning all of this programming around that, and everything that I have to do for that, and then the Rooster Network, with all the young professionals that I'm guiding, it's busy enough, and I'm really enjoying that. That's again something that I've built out of nothing in the last 12 months, and that is just at the beginning, right? So for now, even if the new idea is not going to kick off, it's fine. I'm busy enough with this, and if this is what I need to do for the next year, I'm also fine with that, because I've basically just completed phase one, which is validation of all three ideas. And for the SEO tool, I'm just talking to people that are potentially clients, and I'm only getting the first pieces of feedback there. I don't have anything live yet. So with that one, I'm even just starting the validation. So it's also fine for me to slow down a little bit now and focus on these three things.
Yeah. I love the way that you talk about it. Like it's very calm, it's very logical. So hopefully I don't want to say copy it, but
Well, do it. Like,
yeah,
it's not about copying the ideas, right? It's
yeah,
maybe copying the approach,
the
and there's
mindset,
nothing
yeah,
wrong. The mindset, there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah,
And we all learn that from other places. I learned that from how I did it at Staples. I figured out my format there, and I'm actually presenting upcoming Tuesday at June 9
yeah,
about that as well. Like how I approach setting up an SEO strategy and how I grew all of that on an international level with so many different stakeholders. How do you convince people? How do you make business cases? I had a format there, and I could just also like copy and paste that over time and refine it a little bit
yeah,
um, for each country. So I guess there's nothing wrong with finding a way of doing, personalizing it, and then just keep doing it in that way, because that's your way. That's going to be your way, right?
for sure. Yeah. Love it. Can't wait. I'll be tuning in just because your job relates to my job, and I need the knowledge. So I'll
And
get
I'm
up at
happy to share.
I'll get up at midnight or whatever time it's at.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, a couple things I always like to close out with is what is one characteristic that you believe every leader should possess?
One characteristic that every leader should possess. Uh, Leaders should be open, non-judgmental, and listen all the time, but be very clear and consistent in the direction they take
Mm-hmm.
for the company, for the where they want people to go to, what needs to be the focus.
Yeah.
I've
Interesting.
seen that go wrong, or wrong is a big word, but I've seen that not being handled perfectly, in my opinion, like my humble opinion even,
Yeah.
um, over the last 10 years. Um, as a manager, or as a specialist, as a consultant, as let's say an employee, you also don't know everything that is going on. So sometimes it doesn't make sense for you, but it does make sense for leadership and management. Um, but management should also, and leadership should also understand that part, right? Especially being slightly authoritative. I wouldn't say dictatorial, if that's an
Mm-hmm.
English word.
Yep.
Of course, you can't be too harsh in that direction. But if a leader, and let's say there's a difference between a leader and a manager, right? A leader should really have a vision on where the company needs to go to, where the company needs to grow mostly,
Mm-hmm.
and inspire people to get there. A leader should not give exact directions on how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you hire managers, and that's why managers have all these specialists to work with.
Mm-hmm.
They are the experts, and that's also often where things go wrong, where leaders are becoming too much a manager, and managers sometimes try to be too much of a leader, whereas managers, they should have very clear frameworks. Okay, work within this, and get to these KPIs so that we can get to that goal that our CEO is setting, that vision that he's having of changing the world with
Mm-hmm.
product X. Um, so but what I also sometimes see going wrong is that leaders forget to seriously listen to the people on the work floor. Like, really, the specialists sometimes know really specific details very, very well, way more than leaders do sometimes. And and that's what is, in my opinion, one of the most important traits of being part of leadership, is that you listen to people within your organization with an open mindset and without judging them immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And then take that into consideration and figure out how to deal with it, or don't deal with it, but figure out if it is valuable to you, and figure out how you can use all of that internal knowledge in, again, fine tuning that vision, that goal, and making sure that everybody understands it.
Yeah, thank you. And then lastly, what books are you reading right now?
Ah,
What are you reading?
I am actually right now. I'm reading Stephen Covey's. I have it in front of me. I'm reading Stephen Covey's Habits of Highly Effective People, and I'm
Yeah.
literally halfway through it.
Classic. Yeah.
It's classic. It's very philosophical. It's sometimes a bit dry, but if you read through it, I think a lot of other self-management books are going to be using this as a source. So sometimes you have
For
some of these
sure.
aha moments. Oh, hey, this is how that book intended this to. Oh, that's how this book intended this.
Yeah.
You can see that this has been
An
um,
influence.
an influence to many blogs and books and
Interesting.
speakers. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Thanks for having this conversation. It's been a pleasure being here. And I think you're doing a really good job with this. And I am very curious to number 4, 5, 6, and then number 99, and then a number 100.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be a journey.
Yeah, like you said, actually, it'll be interesting looking back after I have a few more of these in the can and seeing how it all goes. But thank you for being on the show. For anybody listening right now, like Michel said, he's doing a presentation on SEO. Do you want to give him the details?
Sure. Follow me on LinkedIn. Just find me, Michel Kant. I'm sure Matt can mention it somewhere, because I have the invite on my LinkedIn. Because the URL is not too easy to share, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But if you follow me on LinkedIn, you can find everything out. And also, if you have any questions on SEO or digital marketing or personal growth, just let me know. I'm always open to have conversations with anybody. I'm learning all the time myself. I really believe that everybody should be learning, and that's also why I'm giving away my knowledge all the time on conferences like this one on Tuesday, 9th of June, but also today on the podcast. I love talking about learnings and growth.
And you speak so eloquently, so.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll just pocket that one.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for coming on the show, and I'll be sure to drop the details into the description of the show and wherever I distribute this. So again, you can talk to Michel, find him on LinkedIn, and make sure you catch his presentation. I'm sure it'll be awesome. Okay. Thanks, everybody.